Today's book review is entitled Understanding the Use of Handguns for Self-Defense, What You Need to Know by David Nash. Published by Loose Leaf Law Publications, copyright 2011. David Nash is a former U.S. Marine and current firearms instructor with the Shepherd School. The school provides NRA-sanctioned firearms training and firearms instruction. He writes this book stating that he's an average citizen who believes in the philosophy of sheepdogs. Visit the author's website at www.tngun.com. Understanding the use of handguns for self-defense covers a variety of topics for beginner and experienced shooters. The book covers topics like the mindset of owning a gun, including choosing, carrying, and shooting a gun, with legalities and safety measures. If you are new to guns or new to carrying one, this book could provide you with the information required to do so safely and legally. Anyone who's seeking a book on firearms or the mindset of owning and carrying a firearm for self-defense, specifically handguns in this case, could benefit from reading this book. It describes and teaches many aspects of handgun use, aspects of legality, what happens in a gunfight, how and where to take cover, use of deadly force, common myths about handguns, as well as cleaning and handling, and many other topics are discussed. The beginning of the book has a title page and then a dedication page. The contents page, which includes titles of 13 chapters spanning across 130 pages. These titles include Mindset, Legal, Safety, What Happens in a Gunfight, Use of Force, Choosing a Gun, Operating a Handgun, Carrying a Handgun, Shooting Techniques, Tactics, Common Myths, Dealing with Criticism, and Additional Training, followed by a detailed index. There is also a page about the author which describes the credentials and experience of Mr. David Nash. The introduction page also gives an excerpt about the credentials of the author, an introduction to the author's firearms training school and their mentality, why he wrote a gun book, and what's different about this book versus other gun books. Each chapter has a system of subtopics discussed. Some of those include titles such as Awareness, Time-Critical Decisions, Carry and Gun Ownership Laws, Buying Guns and Gun Show Loopholes, State and Federal Laws and Liability, Storage, Home Defense Guns, Kids and Guns, What Happens After a Shooting, Operation of Handguns, and many other topics. After the last chapter in the book, there's a detailed index, as well as a page that gives other titles of interest from Loose Leaf Law Publications. This book gives the reader a reality check regarding the proper use of handguns and how you should safely operate one. However, many other great topics are discussed that aren't specifically firearm related. For example, the author describes the mentality you should have when you are in the presence of a firearm, along with carrying one. The author states, just because you have a gun, don't let that influence you into pulling it out if you can avoid doing so. He also covers some ethical considerations when engaging in a gunfight, proper aiming techniques, considerations for both men and women, the differences in shooting at the range versus defending yourself, and so on. This provides all readers with the knowledge that they need to confidently carry and operate a firearm. Some of the main topics of the book aren't solely geared towards having a gun. For example, there's a great discussion on the mental mindset and NRA's levels of awareness. This presents the reader with a color coding system similar to that of our national security level of threat system. This system of colors, which gives the reader the mental knowledge to stay out of trouble before it starts. The author gives examples of situations that might warrant moving from one level of awareness to another. This alone provides the reader with a specific skill set not often discussed in your typical firearm book. The author gives the reader several examples of accomplishing the same task. This gives the reader the opportunity to practice several methods and choose what's best for them without being given a single biased choice based on what the author thinks is best for them. For example, there's a discussion on holsters where the author discusses and illustrates in a section the pros and cons of each one described without the author saying this one is better than that one. The book has a loosely written casual undertone that leaves you feeling that the author was just in the room with you having a conversation. Although this is sometimes considered comforting to some readers, it can also be frustrating due to the use of slang terms, run-on sentences, or the reader not understanding what's being discussed for the lack of explanation. There's also a few grammatical and punctuation errors throughout the book, although not many. Some of the topics provide the reader with excellent instructions on how to accomplish a certain task or understand what the author is trying to get across to the reader, such as the discussion on shooting techniques and trigger pull along with reading the target. This is an excellent section. However, other topics don't provide the reader with enough information to put together what's being discussed. For example, the section that describes the differences between revolvers and semi-autos. Here, the author gives the reader a textual description of the differences, the mechanisms, the parts involved, but there's no pictures or illustrations to show the reader this is a slide versus this is a cylinder, here's a cutaway view of what's happening in a semi-auto when a round is fired versus a revolver, and so on. This book seems in part written for an audience who is new to firearms, and illustrating this would be especially important to anyone new to this realm of weaponry. Also, there are some sections that give advice or explain techniques that the author feels are important enough to write about. However, these topics are not given much in terms of a follow-up. For example, in the section on what happens in a gunfight, the author briefly discusses the loss of dexterity when the anxiety of a gunfight ensues. Due to this increased level of adrenaline, one must use gross motor skills instead of fine motor skills. Here, it would be great to have some examples or illustrations of what this means, especially for a new user of handguns. Spell it out for your readers. Don't leave them wondering what this means. The author provides the readers with a solid message. That message is to be vigilant and aware of your surroundings at all times, whether you're carrying a handgun on your person or defending your home. This message holds true to accommodate our very existence in these modern times. The author provides the reader with topics not often discussed when people are first getting familiar with self-defense and firearms. Typical questions that plague the human mind. Can I shoot someone if the time comes? Or am I being prepared or just paranoid? These are the questions that must be answered now, so that you can prevail over future conflicts that may harm you or your loved ones. More Guns, Less Crime by John R. Lott, Jr. The Essential Guide to Handguns, published by Loose Leaf Law Publications. This book is available for $16.95 on various online book retailers. At this time, it comes in paperback format only. Understanding the use of handguns for self-defense, What You Need to Know, received 4 solid stars. This book was an enjoyable read with a lot of memorable discussions and a rebirth of some forgotten content. Although some of the areas were lightly researched, there were still some convincing arguments discussed. This book is recommended. Check it out. Thanks for watching the Survival Bookshelf, and stay tuned for more.